All right, the last notes of this unit and the last ones of semester 1 are proteins and nucleic acids. So we're going to review what you guys learned last year in biology about proteins and nucleic acids. All right, our first 3 questions in these notes have to do with proteins. So we're going to start with, what are proteins? Well, again, they're organic, meaning that they've got lots of carbons in them. They're polymers, which means that there's long chains. And they are made out of what are called amino acids that are all linked together in very specific ways in different shapes and sizes in order to make different kinds of proteins. Now, number 2 asks, what are amino acids made of? And so here we've got a picture, I've drawn out what an amino acid is going to look like. So they have an amine group, that's why they're called amino acids, and they also have a carboxylic acid group, and so you should know by now what those mean. An amine means that there is a nitrogen attached to the carbon, and a carboxylic acid group means that there is a carbon double bond oxygen with an oxygen and a hydrogen. So these are all attached to what's called the central carbon. So every amino acid has a central carbon right here, and we've got 4 things attached to it. You always have an H attached to it. You have an amino group on one side, a carboxylic group on the other side, and the last side is what we call a variable group. Okay, so this R is variable, meaning that there's all kinds of different, actually there's 20 different kind of like side chains or groups that can be added onto that side of the carbon that make it different. So all the proteins that exist, all of them are always made up of a different combination of 20 different amino acids. So every protein known to man is made up of, combination or combining different, order and different numbers of these 20 different amino acids. And so when we hook up amino acids to each other, we're making bonds. Obviously, we're taking 2 molecules and putting them together to make a bond. And specifically for proteins, is what we call a peptide bond. Okay, so that's kind of all you need to really know. We're not going to go into all the details and the pictures of peptide bonds and know, exactly how everything connects. But I just wanted to kind of throw that out at you so that you understand that the amino acids are linked together to form big proteins and small proteins of all sizes and shapes. Alright, last I just wanted to show you this peptide bond. So here in this picture here we've got 2 amino acids right here. So you can see how we've got a center carbon, right? And it's got hydrogens on the bottom, amino groups on the left-hand side, the carboxylic acids on the right-hand side. It's missing its H, that's why it's got a negative sign. And then on the top, there's that R group. So that's going to make it a different amino acid from each other. And then they combine together to form a dipeptide, meaning 2 amino acids through that peptide bond. So that's kind of how it works. All right, our next question has to do with what do proteins do? What are some functions of proteins? So we're going to talk about 3 main ones. Our first one is proteins as enzymes. Remember, enzymes are catalysts. We talked about catalysts a couple of notes ago, being something that speeds up a chemical reaction or allows it to occur with less activation energy needed. So an example that we've talked about before is the enzyme lactase, which is going to break down the milk sugar lactose. So enzymes, are kind of like, these orange things are enzymes, and where, they've got little, substrate specific sites, and they come in and they either, break apart or combine things together. So in the case of lactase, it would, break, say this is the milk sugar, it would break it apart into, the 2 different glucose and galactose sugars. So that's one enzyme, or one function of proteins, as being enzymes. The second one we'll talk about is transport proteins. So they are responsible for carrying substances around the body. So here's a great example: hemoglobin. It's found in your red blood cells, and it's a protein that carries the oxygen to your cells. So it's a protein that is responsible for carrying the oxygen molecules to your cells so that they can survive. So that's a second function that we'll talk about. And the third function is proteins also act as hormones, which carry signals to, from one part of your body to another. So a good example of this is insulin. Insulin is a protein hormone that's made in your pancreas, and it goes around and basically signals your cells to let glucose in so that they can have energy in order to survive. So we can see here that we've got insulin here that is basically tickling the cells, telling them, hey, look, there's glucose here, let it in. Okay, so that's its main job. So, and again, that's a protein that our body makes to help us send signals around it. All right, our very last question is just going to be about nucleic acids, so it'll be nice and short. So let's take a look. All right, so our final question is, what are nucleic acids? So, like you spent a bulk of time in biology last year learning about DNA and RNA and transcription and translation to proteins and all that stuff. Remember, nucleic acids are basically polymers, or long chains of sugars and bases together that store and transmit genetic information. Okay, so, and they contain lots of nitrogen. In fact, the nitrogens are found in the bases, the A, T, G, C, right? The adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. So they contain a lot of nitrogen molecules, or nitrogen atoms, and are involved in storing and transmitting genetic information. So there's two types of nucleic acids. We have DNA, which is, these two pictures right here. DNA, remember, is double-stranded. There's two strands of it, and it's going to store the genetic information in the cell's nucleus. And on the other hand, we also have RNA, which is this one, so it's single-stranded, and its job is to take the information from the DNA in the nucleus and take it out of the nucleus so that it can make proteins. So that's what gets translated. RNA is used for translation into proteins, if you guys remember that from biology. So anyways, that's just a brief review of nucleic acids and what they contain and what kinds there are. All right, so we'll see you tomorrow for a short little review of proteins and nucleic acids.